Hello and welcome, as it is the end of the 30th day of January 2018. My name is Derek and welcome. Everything, like always, within your own risk and your own reward. Alright then, so a lot of the markets are falling. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, it's down below the 10,000 level, and it is, well, not doing as bad as some of the other cryptocurrencies. It's one of the top cryptocurrencies over the day. Meaning most coins are down against Bitcoin. Very few are up. As price action is leaving the 18 average of lows against Bitcoin. So back to ABY or ArtByte. Back at the top. This is something worth noticing. This was really big. I didn't get as much of a profit as I should have within the play, but I got some. During this top, which we can see is clearly around 373, I was unloading a lot of my ABY for 400 and change. I think I probably should have waited to buy cheaper. I mean, I bought instantly back. I sold at like 400 and change, bought 300 and change back. So I technically got small gain. But when the markets are very overextended, you know what, sometimes you can just wait for a pullback. This one worked, and buying in here, well, you might not have got any sells. Price action, breaking a bit down below the support, that's what's just early happening. I don't want to buy now. Maybe if it comes down to this previous low as the next support as an area, I'd be looking to be a buyer. Let's move on to Ardor. Ardor is at the key level of support. Don't want to draw too many of these things because they are annoying to come back to, and I really have to remove them every time or else they'll just remain. So hide all drawing tools. But it's just breaking down. And Aragon, it's been having this nice little run. I'll pull back to where it came from. It's still very overextended. Even though the 18 average of lows would be just one small price correction. But if this thing gets going above, this thing could easily have another leg higher. ARDR, which is Ardor, it is also barely broken down the level of resistance. I don't think I'd be wanting to be a buyer until it comes back to this previous key area, which is between 55 and about 64. Aurora AUR, we have a situation where it not a nice little gain, and this is where buy orders are really important on the roughly around US Thanksgiving time frame, November 25th. Had a huge spot where you could buy at 2,200 when fair price at the time was at 8,500. And even in here, any type of sell orders, now you're back to where it came from. It could come down to the 18 average. Obviously, that thing is key. But quite frankly, after a rally up here, small sell-off and barely beating the resistance, coming back down, that's not a bullish signal at all. Let's move on to Bancor, BNT. These are all going to be in alphabetical order. Sideways action within the daily time frame, so it's actually doing better than Bitcoin right now. Moving on to Bitcoin Cash, which looks like it's not really doing too much, just hanging in with the 18 average of lows. We can see the size of these candles. Like, look at the size of these red and green in here, and they've just calmed down. So it's not like that's just ending and the volatility is gone. We're in a pause situation. When this thing gets going, either for a decent move down or higher, you're going to see the candle sizes move up with it. Black coin is next, BLK. It has just broken down below this level of support. So I'd be looking for a further decline here to come back to where it came from, probably in the area of around 3,300 and change as a potential level for support. CPC, Capricorn, which is a very volatile moving object as well. It's got this pattern of like a head and shoulders pattern. There's a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. But key thing is, on this date, on January 17th, it had one of those moves down, came back to the 18 average of lows, resisted it, came back down to key previous support, resisted the 18 average of lows in a lower area. It's been grinding it down, now back to that key level. So wouldn't be surprised if this thing has a decent sized down move. Maybe back to the November congestion resistance area in and around the 55,000 area up to 5,400. Moving on to Dash, DASH, it's just going sideways. You can see a little bit of a symmetrical triangle within the mix. So just a little bit of indecision, and yeah, all these larger coins are doing better than the smaller ones, obviously. Gigabyte DGB, here's that situation of a very weak move. Definitely a bearish setup, as we can see after having this sideways action within the 18 lows. It has a decent rally, 2 green candles up. The next day after that, it goes up a little bit above the 18 average of highs. It sells off a little bit, which is fine. Then you got a big red candle down day, which is a little cautious, but it's kind of important to follow that through. We're just into the new day now, and I overall wouldn't expect much if this thing. I'd expect it to probably come down at least maybe to this lower support level in around the 370 area. But even towards the 300 mark could easily be a situation over the next day to 3 that could very well happen. District 0xDNT. Here's a situation where we have a test of the previous low. I wouldn't be too excited about buying, because you make a low like this and then you have your rally. When you come back to it, oftentimes if you're going to look for a push, you're going to look for a lower high push, which brings it up to the 1500 area. So now the risk reward does not look good in that spot, and this is something I do want to get active in, and maybe a move down to a little bit below the 1000 mark, maybe in around the 900 and a bit below, around 875 might be an area where it might come and find support. I'm not only going to show cryptos, but I'm going to show the dollar index, gold and silver as well, because I'm going to show everything that I've put on my watch list. Dollar index on the daily time frame is just doing whatever, but it's going down, of course. Edgeless, which I got into today, continues to go lower down to the 100 level. So now it's at a key support mark. If I didn't already buy, this is where I would enter in. So it cost me in this case buying early, so be it. I'll be looking to buy more if it comes down to this level in here. Emercoin EMC is next on the list, and it is just doing magnificent. I've had a small amount of profit within day trading today, but nothing really of too much. Ethereum Classic, it's not doing so bad, but it's in a situation where after this last move higher has consolidated within the 18 average of lows. A small bullish green candle move to the 18 average of highs. After a couple days before then, it came to the 18 or went to the 18 lows. A little bit of retracement, but pretty much to about where the 18 of closes would be. So technically on the short term, if it can make this higher low in here, get above, then this thing could be very easily ready to go for some decent gains. Ethereum, this thing is looking to go, as it has got a move up to this point, a little bit of correction within this 18 average. We can see a few days ago in this big green candle that it has made a nice breakout move. Now 3 or 4 days of just consolidating and barely grinding higher, which is most certainly a bullish case. I'm pretty much going to show the daily time frame for most of these, but on the 3-day chart we see in here it's just doing this move in the middle of the gap fill from the high to the low. So it does look like it might be a decent chance this thing could come up to the 15 handle, which would be close to about a 50% gain from this point forward, as it has a retest of previous high. If this doesn't happen and it doesn't rally much further, meaning it tops anywhere near 116, 112 even, or dot 12. Yeah, it works. But if it goes up just a little bit and then you see it come back down, usually it finds support in this key area at around the 94 handle. That's a situation where if it breaks down after that, big move. So a situation like that I'm talking about and is, say for example, it doesn't go up much, so then it comes down to here. What's going to happen, of course, the 18 average is going to start to go sideways as the price action just moves around a little bit. But if you start to see after a move like this, if it has, like I say, just a small gain, and it starts to break down below here, that can usually, or more times than normal, be relatively vicious in the size of the red candle if you get a failed rally like this beforehand, because, well, that's just usually what I've seen within the history of a chart. So I'm still on the E's. So let's remove the drawings and move on to the next chart. And the next chart is Faircoin. Faircoin just hanging in there within the 18 average of lows, and not much more to say about that there. Factom FCT hanging in there within the 18 average of lows as well. So very tough to determine anything on something like that. Feathercoin has broken this level of support, so now it's getting to the point of being in buy territory. And if you bought at the 18 average of lows, I would probably wait at least until this area here. I can't remember if I bought at the 18 lows or if I did recently. It's in my portfolio, so I know I did. Gold, the cryptocurrency, the one that's not a cryptocurrency, has came back and made a move to previous high from the September levels. Now we'll see how the consolidation for such occurs. The test barely broke the previous high, but to me it's just a matching test. The red candle down day, okay, so be it. The 18 average of highs is rising steadily, and the lows is in at about 1300, so I'd be looking for north of that to be a level of support. But within this, whenever they have their up and down moves, the 18 average historically doesn't do too well. This is all 3-day time frame, by the way. Let's move it back to the daily. Okay, let's do the GRS, which is the, I'm not going to pronounce it. It's just breaking down below the 18 average of lows. We have this twice hit level of support from the start of this year, which coincides with this upper end congestion area from November and December. But it's just breaking below it. Where would you expect a significant leg lower? Maybe at minimum down to about the 5,000 handle, but there's still all this lower gap fill area from the previous low from 1,300 up and towards here. So it's going to be an interesting situation how this moves. Komodo, it's now back down to the 18 average of lows. It's the newly rising one. So this is a very interesting situation, because within the market movements and dynamics of the last couple weeks, week and a half or such, it's had some tests getting above the 18 average of highs, but it pretty much came back down to the 18 average of closes every single time. The session previous coming up to this 18 average of highs, now it's back down. It's test number one of the 18 average of lows since the break at the middle of the month. So this is going to be an interesting situation. Any type of small breaks below it mean very little for me in that spot. I need to see it hold and stay below really 57 for more than 2 or 3 days. If price action does have a little bit of a fall, I would have to think that this previous area of support should be a viable level again, and at around the 46, 47 handle. Moving on to core in its situation has had this high come into play, testing this level of support, but since then resisting twice at the 18 average of highs, but more importantly lower from the previous one. Now the decent sized red one back down to this level of support, which was also a little bit of a key area in here. Very difficult to determine if this thing is going to break down further, because this is just really test number 2 of this level since this high. But if this thing does happen to go down, I'd be looking conservatively at a price target at the previous level at around the 30 handle. Anyways, and then down to here at the 22. That's pretty decent odds that you should at least get a push at least up to all this previous congestion area anyway. ION, this is ION situation in here. Nice huge green candle move up. Price correction for red candle down, and then buyers just flock in again, both of them on heavy volume. Then about 4 days of just going sideways within the 18 average of highs. If this thing doesn't hang on for a bit and loses the short-term support, I'd be looking for a test that would probably break below this 18 average of lows and come down 34, even down to about the 26 handle. This is the previous last spot in which it came from. Lomo coin, LMC, this is a very bearish situation, as the market had a huge fall from January 12th down to about the 17th, 18th, but since then consolidated in a very low volatile range. Buyers were not too enthusiastic to come in with these lower prices a few weeks ago, so now it looks as if it's already broken the short-term level of support. So you have this little more, again, this would be another short-term level again around 750. But I'd be looking for resistance to come in at around 800 and change. So again, the risk reward isn't too good because all you're looking to gain on something like that would be about 20 or so percent. When the risk going down to like 600 or so, even down to a previous low of 400, is most certainly, to me, a possibility with a bearish setup in play. Litecoin, it's hanging in there, but the low volatility is interesting to say the least. But overall, when you have a huge rally like this, and this is your consolidation pattern, especially when a lot of the other cryptos have been consolidating harder than such against Bitcoin, that's pretty decent to say the least. Again, a lot of the major coins doing well. Litecoin against the dollar down to 159. Don't count out a possibility of this thing going to 100, but I really like the probability odds that not only would this be a good bounce to hit previous resistance where we previously stood at around 170 change, but to even be a great situation for further gains, not only to the previous highs in the 300s, not only to the 4-digit levels, but well into the 4 digits is how I think it's going to go. And that's my risk reward. I'm not hodling Litecoin, but I'm hodling my portfolio for sure, making sure I'm going to stay well into it at heavy exposure within the Litecoin itself. But the reason why every so often I buy physical silver with this or use it as actual money, buy a computer here and there or whatnot, it's because in case this doesn't go in the whole crypto space in general, then at least I know I got something out of it. Let's move on. MER, not as big of a code. Mercury, it's just barely breaking down below this 18 average. It had the first little move here, and we can see it came back close to the 18 average of highs, pulling back down lower again, just newly breaking down below this support. I wouldn't be surprised if this has a move down to about the 3,400 level. Moving on to NEO, which is in a very good situation like the Ethereum, where it's had a move up to previous high, several candles down, meeting up with the 18 average of closes, several days here consolidating within the highs, but there's the breakout candle above the band. It's now been consolidating for this day where everything's going down at the previous high. It's also at an area where it had a previous resistance or major resistance. Well, and you expect to have resistance at this level when you get there. It did have a little bit, but the key word right now is it's just a little bit. As I explained before, if this thing barely goes higher, or even if it doesn't, if this level of support gives in at around the 108 handle and you start to see action at like 93, there could be a decent sized move that can bring this further for decent sized losses like 60, 50, or 40-ish kind of deal. As that's what I've noticed a lot of that anyway. Golden NLG, it's in a situation where it's had a significant move lower, so I added this to my position because of the significant gain. To me, I look at that as a gain as far as gaining of tokens. And I'd be looking right now, if it has a fast move to the 18 average, let's assume that today or tomorrow, well, when I say today, I guess I mean Wednesday. If Wednesday or Thursday it happens to make it to the 18 average of highs, that would be an extremely strong sell signal, because what I've been realizing looking at historical charts, that when you have a big move down below the 18 average and you're well below it, and then you reach the 18 average of highs within the day 2 or 3-ish or so, that you usually have a significant sell-off from that point. OK Cash is next on the list, and it's now just, you can see how it's starting to turn over with the 18 average for a little while. Not much volatility in the last few days, but it speaks a lot as this support from the 27th is falling through. So if this general area that it's at now doesn't hang in there, then we're going to be talking about testing the previous low at about the 2,500, maybe a conservative level at about 32. PDC, which is Project Aquarium, this thing has just broken down below the 18 below previous support and the 18 average of lows. It was riding that for quite some time. It's now at a previous level of support. It hasn't been there for a while, and it had a significant rally after it was there. When I look at the overall mechanism of this chart, I see a lot of big volatility. So this is something I want to get involved in. I also look at historical moves, and I see all of these situations. This intrigues me to want to have sell orders in this thing. So what did I do? I bought this today. I bought this just recently at this price point because it's at a key support level well below the 18 average of lows. It has already broken a key support, and it's significantly well below it in the movement and size you would expect. So that's why I'm a buyer. I don't think I'd be buying until, again, either 800 and change or probably previous low. That's 850. Yeah, previous low is where I'll be buying next. Again, if of course the price action point gets to that level. Let's move on to PivX, which I recently bought early at the 80 mark. Obviously, I can get it in for cheaper. I'm not going to buy again until it reaches the previous low. Let's move on to LITECOIN. I got a whole bunch of lines and stuff that I've drawn in here. Don't know what I was doing with it, but anyway, it's got, let me just remove it. After the move to the 18 average of highs, a few days of just consolidating down towards this, what's been a key area of support. So I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back down to this key congestion area with a conservative level at around 645. Actually, conservative level at around 670. And more aggressively down towards about 550. QRL, which is quantum resistance ledger. I am so close to thinking, is it ready to buy? I think it could go down a little bit further, but it's had a situation after making this low, resisting the 18 average of highs and now breaking down below it. You know what? It's barely a decent size move from the support mark it's falling from, so I think it could do a little bit more. RADS. When you look at this, you can see all of these spikes higher. Great for having sell orders. Situation here, been going sideways a little bit. It's been closing consistently at around 91 for the last little while. It's broken down below that point. And, you know, we got a little bit of support in here, so just maybe you might be able to find it here. Maybe be able to get up to this point here. If this thing, however, like I was mentioning to you before, you have a situation like this, where you make a high, you have a nice correction, you barely extend it, then you correct within that range. If you break below it, don't be surprised if it has a test down towards here. Its overall standing is relatively okay, so even upwards to about this area, but you expect a decent size move when a situation like that occurs. At least that's what I've been noticing. Okay, remove these drawing tools. I don't want to remove the indicators by mistake. SIA coin resisting the 18 average of highs, also barely breaking down below the short-term support, so the next test is going to be the previous support mark in here at a little bit below 300, closer to about 289. Silver is awesome to buy with Bitcoin, but I think this thing is going to be going pretty good as we move in the future, but anyone who's been watching my videos would know that. Steam, I actually just bought as it's made a move down to the 18 average of lows. It's in a risk-reward situation, but I plan on buying more if it goes lower. It had a nice little break up to previous high, so now that it's back down to the area of where it came from, 18 lows like this, several days down, it's just time where I'm going to speculate, if you will, buy, look to sell at previous high. Generally speaking, what I've been doing with practically almost everything that I've been buying is I'll find the best short-term place to put a sell order. In this case, it's below previous level at around the 59 handle. Little safer might be in around 57 and change. So, and what would I normally, my first sell order is going to be for about 22% of what I buy. And then after that, I'll sell about 10% less of what I sell each time. So what I'm doing is I'm selling about 22% of my position, putting an order in for such at this level. Then I'm going to look at what other key levels I'm looking at. And in this case, I could choose this high, but I've actually put the remainder of my position in for like an insane sell order higher. And the reason is for that, why do I need to hold it in my balance? I do not. And if it happens to go to that same level, I'll be extremely happy to get sell most of my position at like 5, 6, 7x gain or whatever it happens to be. And then if I happen to say only get the first sell order, okay, I'll have the sell order, I'll look to buy it back later. Then I'll have to remove that sell order and probably put it towards a lower level. And then again, just sell a little bit less than what I did before, because I want to ensure that if I can get like a good rally, I can have like 3, 4, 5 sell orders in a row and selling in increments. So okay, you're selling here at say 59, then maybe you sell again at like say 75, then you sell again at say 94, so on, so forth. SWT, something else in which I also bought pretty much for the exact same reasons as Steam. And when I look at this over the long-term time frame, a little bit of decent size risk being associated, but it hasn't. I think it's still worth doing because it's had some good up and down moves, but it does lack all of these major upticks like some of the other codes have. THC is, I was looking at this earlier when it was down at the support level, and I was thinking, man, do I buy this? And I concluded the fact of no, because the industry of these coins are basically that they can go up and down really, really fast. So the more that I'm thinking about it, I think 1,500 is a conservative level to buy, but I even think this thing could hit 1,000 and maybe even down to about 900. So I don't really want to consider buying until I have a decent leg below here. So I'll probably dabble in at about the 13 to 1,500 position. If it goes there, UBQ, it barely broke this level of resistance, nearing the 18 average of lows, so it's having a price correction from the last move. So far, so good. LITECOIN, look at this big rally that I had to previous high, then to sell it off like this. This is a very weak pattern. Was this like one quick move? How did this look? Let me take a look at this on the 1 hour time frame. And yeah, this just got shot up in like one big move, and then sellers have just immediately came back into the market. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing coming into the day or eventually soon does have a play, maybe down to about the 23, 24 level. Voxels, VOX. This is one that I got into, and it's made a move up to above the 18 average, now back down to the 18 average of lows. So it had a decent size move, and it gave it most of it back in a relatively short period of time. Lots of support within this area, which normally, when I say more often support is tested, the more likely it is taken out. And if it gets taken out, that doesn't surprise me. However, it did come off one of its better rallies that it had since it's, at least since this down move in the middle of January, as I liked how it did in 4 consecutive days rather quickly and selling off like the previous VIA chart. So then, if of course this goes down, I don't want to be a buyer until it goes down towards here, and I'm actually really long on this position because I have I think this thing's going to go, as it had a beautiful rally on this amazing volume. And I think when the cryptos in general go off, and they seem to all go up and down together, and they're going down together right now, that when the time for them to go up, that this thing is going to do really, really well. VertCoin is next. We'll take a look at this on the daily time frame. And its situation has had several support within this area here. First, it's supported at around the 238 handle, resisting most recently. Now falling below the 18 average of low, so a lot of heavy concern in this stage. It's already came back to where it came from the last time, so the next spot I'd be looking at, conservatively, it's tough, but I would even consider down towards the in the 2 handles anyway. Only a couple codes left. We got XMY. as I guess this might have been from my previous video before, but it's breaking down below this 18 average, as we can see here, down to a previous level for where it came from. I recently just actually, I think I bought this or I put a low buy order in, but I'm now looking to get into this because this is one that excites me huge to trade, as I've been talking about the last few days. We're going to finish this off with XVG, which is Verge, and in this situation back down to the previous level of support. So I guess I'm going to say the same thing that I said with voxels, that when the cryptos in general go off, that this thing will probably do these go off as well. And it could take a little while. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a good couple of weeks or so before the cryptos overall will do really, really well, or there's going to be 2 weeks of this thing going down a little bit sideways or barely going up kind of deal. And yeah, so within such, it wouldn't surprise me in here when we see how something had this huge move, that you have something like you did before when you break support. Maybe you come back to, well, 224 would be as, I mean, it doesn't surprise me if it does that, but when you have a move where you break resistance and you go up, and it's like looking at the CN Tower, which is just a huge straight up building, a thin straight up building, which is what I look at this as, then when you have your correctionary moves, even if you come down to 441 and you end up basically being down like 75% plus from where you came from, well, that means you would still be significantly higher from where it broke out from, or anywhere historically in which it traded from. So we're in the price discovery within these markets, and that's what we're doing, is discovering the price. In short term, maybe this thing does take another dive lower. Of course, when this does manage to get above the 18 average of highs, you can start talking about signs of it starting to head back higher again. But until then, right now, the majority of these markets are in a bearish situation. And on the short term, all rallies are guilty until proven innocent. But with these cryptos, all of these sell-offs, to me, are guilty until proven innocent. And when I say guilty until proven innocent, what I mean is you are guilty for this selling being real. And because of such, it's probably in time going to go back higher from where you are, even if you go down further. Meaning, let's just assume you buy this at around 700. It's already down a fraction, and it goes down to, say, 373. Well, then, is it likely later on that, even if it's just like 5 to 8 months, or if it's an extended amount, 5 to 8 months rather, not just, that you're going to be up a decent amount? Probably. After all, before on the market, those who bought at, say, 168, oh, then they see it's at 68. Oh, so it's down about 2/3 of its value, and yet then this big rally happens. Oh, I bought at 168 and it's at 1200. How you doing, basically? Well then, thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.